our book club members. Matthew Wiliford is joining us in studio. Hey, Matt.
Good morning.
What's going on?
It's a beautiful day outside.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. And then we also have Michele Howard, who, by the way, Michele, congratulations. You are now the director.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I was hoping you would come in with like a director's cap. I mean,
Next time.
Yeah.
But we're on radio, so I thought.
We're also on television.
I know.
Hello. Actually, I think it's just called digital now. I don't know the correct terms anymore.
It's really exciting, though.
But this is very exciting and well deserved for you, the new director of Traverse Area District Library. But that doesn't mean you're going to quit the book club.
Oh, no. I will
Right
make
now?
sure I am here. I love this. Yeah. And I love this
She's
book.
not a quitter.
Oh, no.
Yeah, she's. And I don't think any of us were quitters in this book. Let's all get down to it, rolling up our sleeves and talking about what we thought about Where the Crawdads Sing. Let's start with you, Matt, because I feel like we kind of picked on you a couple of times for our books, but this time around, what did you think of Delia Owens' Where the Crawdads Sing?
I enjoyed it immensely.
Mm-hmm.
And then after I finished it, I was like, yeah, but there was this thing. And, but it doesn't, I'm not qualifying my answer. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it immensely. It was just the kind of thing you just turn the pages and you just keep going.
Yeah.
But it was kind of funny because as I was reading it, I was thinking, oh, this is very similar to this other story, or this aspect is very similar to whatever. So, you think about Kaya, the marsh girl, and I thought, Mowgli,
Yeah.
in the Jungle Book being raised.
I've never even thought about
me
that. But that's
neither.
true.
Sort of that coming of age, abandoned in the wild kind of dynamic. So.
Yeah, right. And Colleen, what did you think about?
It grabbed me right from the beginning, and I guess one thing I really liked about it, it wasn't predictable. I didn't see where it was going right off the bat, and I mean even a long way through it, I didn't see where it was going, and I wasn't sure where I don't want to say this here because it would give something away. The main thing, I wasn't sure how the main thing was going to end up.
Yeah, right, exactly. Right. And I mean, we obviously don't want to ruin this for anyone. But, getting into the story, Michele, you had mentioned that this was sort of the most requested book at the Traverse Area District Library for as long as staff could remember.
Yeah, for sure. We keep getting holds on it. We have over 40 circulating copies. And people still keep putting holds on it. So I keep buying more copies so that people can read it. And that's what intrigued me because I thought, could it really be that good?
Yeah.
And then I read it and I was like, oh my goodness, it is.
The writing style for me was, so I was a little nervous about this book to begin with because all the hype. I thought, well, if everybody loves it, then, clearly I'm going to hate it.
Absolutely. It's like you want to hate it.
Yeah, you kind of do because you want to be different. But then also because Delia Owens she's done a lot of nonfiction. She's a nature writer. She and her husband write a lot of very descriptive nature nonfiction.
Oh, we should have known.
Books.
I mean, look at how this book was written. I didn't know that before.
But her style was so beautiful, and the way she painted pictures, I felt and saw every one of the characters. I know what they look like. I knew where we were the whole time, and that's kind of rare, to find all of those qualities at once.
I totally agree. And I know, of course, when I read after I finish a book, I read the negative comments.
Yeah.
And some people had said, well, what is this? Is it YA? Is it a mystery? Is it a nature book? And I thought, well, yeah. And it's all of it.
Yes.
And it was so beautifully put together that I was worried the nature writer, I thought, oh, this is going to get boring. It wasn't. I felt like immersed. I felt like I was in the marsh. I saw the flowers. I saw the birds. Like I just felt like I was there with her.
The other part of this book, though, is it takes place, during a period of about 9 years in the 60s. The timeline?
1952 to 1970.
No, okay, so 52 to 70. So it kind of jumps around. It didn't feel like it jumped around too much. The way that she put this was by the years, which I thought was really good. And you're seeing the main character, Kaya, you're seeing her grow up in a really terrible situation at times. And I was thinking about you quite a bit, Matt, because I was like, oh, we've had a lot of these stories in our book club so far. When we started with Educated and we went to, Eleanor, yes. Oliphant is completely fine. And even a little bit in The Immortalist that we just read, where there were some really tough family circumstances. But that wasn't the main point of this book. It wasn't a social services as being called book. It was a survival book.
Yeah, I think one of the brilliant parts of this book that helps draw people in is, as Michele said, it's not just a thriller. It's not just a sort of naturalist or other story, feel-good story. It's that the author builds tension by, alternating chapters from present tense, because you open this book with a whodunit crime thriller.
Absolutely.
Someone's been murdered.
Yep.
And then you alternate to, like, back in history, the coming-of-age story of Kaya's journey through life. And so it really propels the reader forward as they want to find out more. And now they've got present tense, past tense.
Yeah.
It's all contextual.
I
And
agree.
you put it together or not until they twist it.
Well, there's
occasionally.
and there's an I feel like, there's the mystery, the whodunit mystery. There's sort of a courtroom drama. There's a coming of age story. There's a romance. There's a lot of things that are going on here. But there's also this overarching, like, concept of who fits in, of feeling like an outcast. And that part of it wasn't the entire story, but that was really interesting to see how that unfolded. Because this is a young woman who is growing up in isolation. She is an outsider. And there's a lot of questions in 2019 that I'm going, well, why aren't social services there? How did the parents just leave? All this stuff that has happened. Why isn't anybody doing anything? And then by the end of the novel, there's just this entirely different outcome that you go, all right, is that poetic justice or what happened there,
I was thinking a couple of things. One, this would make a really good movie.
Yes.
Oh, man, it's going to be a really good movie.
And the other thing was, this didn't bother me, but I would have been okay with this, which is more character development of people like the parents, her father and mother, maybe one of the siblings or something like that. And, it was fine how it was. But I think it leaves open the possibility of maybe something else, part 2 that investigates another angle of it or something like that.
Yeah, I could see that, especially the mother. Like, I felt like that mother theme kind of spread.
To necessarily, yeah.
Yeah, the mom just took off, and like I brought it in because I loved this line so much.
Yes.
Is when she's talking about she's been alone for months. Her dad is gone, and she said, and it says, Kaya laid her hand upon the breathing wet earth, and the marsh became her mother. And I like, it stuck with me the whole time because I thought we all at some point lose our mothers, and sometimes it's earlier or later in different circumstances. And like that idea of who mothers you, I felt like that was a really powerful theme in terms of her trying to. I almost felt like she was looking for a mom, or she was just looking for something,
for connection,
that our moms provide.
Part of the other part of this book is there are other, characters, supporting characters in her life, and there's sort of this, people from town that think of this wild marsh girl, and call her names, or as you said, Christal, aren't trying to actively help her. It's just, this weird creature out in the, and call her names. But Delia Owens creates tutors for Kaya throughout the book too. Tate, this young boy that kind of, we see this journey of, it's a little bit of a unrequited love kind of thing. But he teaches her to read. And he encourages her naturalist tendencies with the feathers and trinkets. And then, Jumpin and his wife Mabel, Mabel definitely takes on that sort of critical mother role in certainly a very formative stage of Kaya's life. Yeah. So the only thing I would say is that, Jumpin and his wife Mabel are Negroes. This is set in the 1950s. This is the colored South kind of thing. And so there's definitely that dynamic, I think, of a marginalized part of the community recognize another marginalized person in the community.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, I know I've even looked at some of the questions that are kind of going through in other book circles all around the country who are talking about this book, and people wondering why they didn't call social services, why they didn't take her in, and that's a great explanation. It was one marginalized group recognizing another and doing what they can, and doing what they can. One thing that I recall in this book is that the idea that Kaya watches, there's a point where Kaya watches fireflies near her shack, and she notices some of the things that are happening with the fireflies, that females can change their flashes to signal different things. And this idea of Kaya learning the things that, you know, humans tend to do from nature was super interesting to me. And that she started to realize that as a woman, she could do certain things and she had certain qualities that she could attract people. She's a very beautiful woman. And I thought that was wonderfully descriptive in the book when you're talking about the marsh girl who literally did get raised by birds and fireflies and the marsh.
Yeah, I think with that too, it makes you realize we're not that far off.
No.
You know, we try to be superior, whatever. You know, we're mammals. And so I just loved her connection with nature, whether it was like watching those bugs.
Or the praying mantis.
Yeah, the praying mantis. And the way she describes her paintings.
Yeah.
And it also just, like, I say this to my kids all the time, like, well, that's what people did before the internet. They looked around, you know. You know, but now everyone's on their phones. And before then, we also just would pick our heads up and watch the birds migrating and watch the water. And the one thing I always worried about during the book was like that an alligator was going to get her. Were you worried about that?
I was worried because the book was so unpredictable. And Colleen said this, like, I never knew where it was going. Mm-hmm. And I was worried at any point that there was going to be, you know, a gator or something was going to happen and then there, she's gone.
Right. Or she's really suffering.
Predator.
Some sort of predator besides a man was going to get her.
Yeah. Let's talk about the men. And you mentioned Tate and the other character, the other romantic interest is Chase. Two very, very different men in her life. And yet, you know, I think we could all kind of agree that maybe we've fallen for the wrong person before. I think Delia did a really good job of demonizing this character in the ways it needed to be, but not too early, so that you still at points were like, well, he's not so bad, you know? And then you go, oh, okay, I don't like him anymore. I felt like that, like she was writing him in a way that he was, you know, this is a teenage boy. And then it was, okay, this is not okay anymore. But it was clear to me that she was not wanting us to hate him right away.
I totally agree. Yeah. And I think because when you first start reading about the relationship and how he views her, it felt like, well, maybe this is a really like insincere guy who's the popular guy in town and the rich kid, but he really wants love. Yeah. And he meets this wild girl.
Like that too.
And then I felt like a little bit of hope, and then I immediately started to suffer.
Yep. And you called it the whole time, didn't you,
And I called the whole time. I was like, zebras don't change their stripes, man. and also because I know in a story, you've got to have that antagonist. Yeah. And so he was, you know, there was a little bit of that, you know, baiting out in the wild, but he wasn't going to change. You knew exactly what he wanted.
He knew exactly what he wanted, but how much of what he wanted do you think was basically what he was brought up to want? You know, there was a lot of pressure from the town and the parents, and the town to me was the villain. Yes, of course he was a bad guy, you know, but it felt to me like the town was the villain.
The way I looked at it was I saw it as he was trying to pursue what was the unattainable or the curiosity that sort of everyone had, you know, like he was on this conquest to find out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I did think, like, I think he does like her, but maybe it's just because I really wanted him to.
I know. I
couldn't tell.
Felt like I wanted, not because I wanted them to end up together or anything, because, you know, that wasn't okay. But I I think you got so involved with the character of Kaya that you just didn't want her to suffer anymore, you know? And it's like, okay, just be a nice enough guy so that she can move away, move out of the marsh and have a life, you know? That's for early on in the book, I was hoping for that, but you will have to read the book to get the ending. It has twists and turns, and it's so well written that this, for the first novel for Delia Owens, this is an incredible feat. Do we think we're going to see more from her, or is she going to go back to being sort of a nature writer?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I read a couple of interviews with her, and it didn't really, nothing I read said, yeah, for sure, but I mean, it's such a gift. I mean, that's when you read a book like this, you think, wow.
Yeah.
You know, that is a gift from someone who clearly just totally understands her topic. Even though she's not from North Carolina, she didn't live in a marsh, but she just has that mind, I think, that created that story. So I really hope there's more.